Well, good morning and welcome to yet another edition of Elevenses. We're up to number 81. It's Sunday, the 25th of October, and the sun's just come out again outside the window here in London after a bit of a stormy day yesterday, that's for sure. So what have we got for you today? Well, I've got a fair amount to cover. The government has dropped the scheme for graduated car licenses. France is creating biker-only rest stops. The Guardian used an article about Triumph as an example of British industry, which has a certain irony about it. I'll come on to that. And a statement from a product, innovation doesn't cost the earth. And I'll be asking which planet that's on. And we'll cover better biking tips as well. So grab yourself your brew and a biscuit and sit yourself down for the rest of the show. Don't forget, you can join me twice a week here, Wednesdays and Sundays at 11 on Facebook for 15 minutes or so of topical news, controversial views, and some better biking tips. Okay, so what have we got to cover today? Well, before I go any further, you've hopefully noticed that the clocks did their thing this morning. So it'll be riding home in the dark for the first time for some of us tomorrow. So I'll just throw out a quick reminder that you can dig out last week's show, Riding in the Dark special. You can find it here on YouTube or on my Coffee page. I've already posted the link in the comments section to the Coffee link, so you can dig it out there. But yeah, have a look at at least the section on riding in the dark, so it's quite useful. Okay, so on with the news. The first thing to say is the government has dropped the graduated licensing plans that they had for drivers. The new focus will be on a new curriculum, the intention of which is to teach learner drivers to deal with a range of road and weather conditions. This move was announced a couple of days ago by Roads Minister Baroness Veer, and she confirmed that the Department for Transport is no longer working on this scheme. She told MPs that this is partly due to the potential impact of restrictions on young people's employment. And instead, she explained that the focus will be on a new curriculum to teach learners how to deal with a range of road and weather conditions. And this is due to go into trials in January. Amongst the topics that are going to be looked at will be driving at speed, apparently, driving in the dark, and driving whilst distracted. Now, that's going to cause some sort of raised eyebrows, I'm sure. Another scheme is to introduce a logbook, which learners document their progress. And the logbook would need to include evidence of the learner having driven in rain and on different kinds of roads in order to pass. They say the system is designed to reduce the number of accidents involving young and novice drivers, and the old chestnut statistics: drivers aged 25 and under make up 7% of licence holders, yet cause 16% of serious and fatal crashes. And yeah, so basically that's what was announced to the Transport Committee by Baroness Veer, and what she said was it should be a very well organised, well-evidenced way of going through the entire undertaking of learning to drive, and it must focus on the areas where people find it most difficult. So what was the response? Well, in one comment on the driver trainer org that I'm a member of said, "This sounds like Pass Plus," which is a scheme that you probably aren't aware exists. It's a whole series of add-on modules that you're supposed to take after passing your test. But as you know, this what was then commented on was that if you're going to drive in the dark and you happen to be doing your driver training in June, that probably means that you're driving after 10 o'clock at night, and the average driving instructor won't be very fond of doing that, and probably not the trainee either. And of course, the problem of driving on motorways as well, you can't get access to them. There are many parts of the country where there simply isn't a motorway within easy access. So this comment concluded, all great in theory, but as always, not much thought has been given to how it will be delivered by those who actually do the work. And I'll come back to that at the end of the show and talk a little bit more detail about that. So don't forget, you are watching 11s Live here with Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training for the next 20 minutes or so. Right, what else have we got? Well, according to a story that appeared on Visor Down, French authorities have installed enhanced facilities at a number of service areas on autoroutes. The Repair des Motards will apparently supply essential maintenance equipment, including chain lube, tyre repair kits, cleaning kits, and even rain gear. Now, whether that, presumably that will be on sale in the service area, so similar to the kind of stuff that you will already find for cars. But one plus is that there will be free helmet storage. So basically you don't have to lug your helmet around whilst trying to balance a tray of food and a mug of coffee in the other hand. According to the report, some of these areas will even get a biker's relay offering free coffee and an area for drying out kit. More on this story was from Veronique Talon. She's the customer director of the APRR, which is the authority which oversees the autoroute concessions in France. And she said, "We're boosting our services free of charge or at the price charged outside the motorway with a network proportionate to the needs of our customers. Here, with motorcycle professionals, we provide a complete response awaited by bikers. Our goal to facilitate and safely accompany their trips to provide maximum pleasure." It would be nice to see something like that on British motorways, wouldn't it? Right, okay, so I've got a story for you, which I just need to show you the picture for. Let's get that up, and that's the wrong picture. Where's the right picture? There it is. Go back one. Now, you have to know a little bit about how the UK motorcycle industry is operating at the moment to understand the irony of the Triumph headline. Let's start again. The Guardian headline, which talked about the British industry being affected by Brexit. And so what they showed there was a photograph of the manufacturing facility at Hinckley in Leicestershire of Triumph motorcycles. The problem is, of course, that that's not where Triumph actually carry out most of their manufacturing production. They have three factories, Chonburi in Thailand, and they have another one in Manaus in Brazil. And apparently right now, only the Speed Triple and the Tiger 1200 are made in the UK. And in February, Triumph announced that they were even planning to move those to Thailand. And that would mean that the only facilities, the only motorcycles design and research units would actually remain here in the UK. So basically all models would be shipped in from offshore. So okay, the Guardian didn't quite get that one right. Okay, so just a reminder as well that my COVID adapted courses are still available. If you are looking for bookings, they are now running at short notice. So basically what we'll do is we'll look at the weather forecast a couple of days ahead and plan around that. And start times will generally be later as well to try to get the best of the dry roads. And of course, if you want to learn from home, then there is the option of online coaching as well. You get basically the same client-based training that you get with a practical on-road course, but it's remote. You tell me what you want and I'll set up a session to deal with it. Okay, so on with the news. As I said, the thing that I wanted to look at here was how much are you prepared to pay? My thought when I saw the price of this inflatable waistcoat was, in fact, pretty much unprintable, really. The ExoTog slogan says it's all about innovation that doesn't cost the earth. Well, is the garment innovative? Well, you can decide that for yourself. That's a close-up of it. It's basically an inflatable vest which traps bubbles of air between two plastic skins. Now, does that sound familiar? Should do, really, because riders have been using bubble wrap as a thermal layer ever since it was invented. Okay, bubble wrap doesn't allow you to blow it up, although popping the bubbles is, of course, very satisfying. So maybe the idea that you can inflate and deflate the garment repeatedly does have some novel thinking behind it. But given that you could wind yourself in bubble wrap for a few pennies, presumably the ExoTog vest is inexpensive as claimed. Well, only if your idea of inexpensive is £97. Mine isn't. If you allow £7 as the cost of the vest and the valve, that's 90 quid for basically for a bunch of air bubbles, which you then have to provide yourself by inflating it. And just to add the insult really to the injury, if you do spring a leak, you don't even get the repair kit included. It's an extra tenner. Sorry, no matter how effective this garment might be out there on the road, it's not going on my shopping list. And, you know, I kind of get the frustrated sometimes with the constant markup that you always find on motorcycle kit. I got an advert through my news feed for a new pair of waterproof socks from Oxford products. Great idea, waterproof socks. If you've ever used them inside a pair of waterproof boots, which turn out not to be, they generally do keep your feet pretty damn dry. I've got a pair. The Oxford product ones were double the price of what I bought, and my ones are not some no-name brand either. They are a respected brand. So how come Oxford can punt the same kit out for basically double the price? I have no idea. I don't understand why, and I certainly don't understand why motorcyclists continue to pay inflated prices for things like waterproof jackets, oversuits, when you can buy, you know, the same kind of stuff from your hiking shop basically for a fraction of the price. Anyway, back to the graduated licenses issue. Now, first of all, I was going to give you some quick thoughts on that. It's a plan that's been around for a while. The US, Canada, Hong Kong, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa all have various versions of a graduated driving license, albeit they are based on different caveats. Some are restricted by age, some restricted by driving experience, some on both. Back in 2013, a study commissioned for the Department of Transport found indisputable evidence that a graduated license scheme would help cut accident rates, especially for young drivers. And what they estimated was that it would save 4,471 casualties, a wonderfully precise figure, isn't it? And 224 million by reducing accidents in the 17 to 19 age group. And graduated licenses did seem to be coming to a learner near you when the then Road Safety Minister, Michael Ellis, said as recently as July last year, 2019, that we want to explore in greater detail how graduated driver licensing or aspects of it can help new drivers to stay safe and reduce the number of people killed or injured on our roads. So now all change again. GDL has been dropped and we're going to roll out something completely different. Personally, I would like to see something evidence-based, but what I don't see is an evidence-based approach from the statement I read out earlier from Baroness Fear. It's very easy to roll out that old line that drivers aged 25 and under make up 7% of license holders, yet cause 16% of serious and fatal crashes. But is there any evidence they actually crash in difficult conditions? The instinctive reaction to difficult driving conditions is actually to be more cautious and more alert if you go out at all. So what evidence do we have? Well, the EU, remember them? They reported on novice drivers in 2015, and what they found was that new and inexperienced drivers have relatively more single vehicle crashes, mostly due to loss of control, more head-on collisions. Young drivers are also overrepresented in crashes at intersections. It says also that they are particularly overrepresented in crashes weekend nights after midnight. Now, this also makes interesting reading from the same report. And what they said here was several attempts have been made to understand why young novice drivers have such a high crash rate and are overrepresented in the previously mentioned types of crash on the basis of police crash reports. However, the results are inconclusive. Some of the studies conclude that these crashes involving young novice drivers are mainly caused by inexperience, such as lack of hazard perception, unintended driving too fast for the circumstances, and distraction. Other studies conclude that, having analysed the police reports, that most of the crashes involving young novice drivers are caused by deliberate risk taking, which they say is down to the age factor, such as intended speeding and drink driving. But the report concludes police reports are probably insufficiently reliable evidence to decide if crashes are the result of intentional risk taking or insufficient hazard anticipation skills. Okay, whatever. A significant chunk of the problem is almost certainly what's known as locus of control. This is the degree to which we all think that we are in control of the situation around us, as opposed to being subject to external forces out of our control. If you think about it, you listen to anybody who says, I feel safer after taking post-test training. What's happened is that they are actually changing their locus of control. They now believe that thanks to their post-test training, they have a better handle on avoiding crashing. And what can happen here is we can get overconfident. Basically, the more training we do, the less we believe we can crash. Any other factors? Well, think about what all younger people actually drive. Some of the loss of control crashes, could it not be the vehicle? One thing that you'll find regularly is that new drivers are restricted by budget to older models, and they're often the lowest spec version of those older vehicles, even when they were new. The vehicles themselves are likely to be well worn. Drivers are likely to fit budget tyres and other parts for the same reason they're cash strapped, and vehicles will have lower crash protection. That was something that Sergeant Peter Sauter talked about at some length when I was working with him on the Shiny Side Up series of presentations out in New Zealand in 2019. That was one of the factors he said, and he said to the parents in the audience, do your children a favor, spend some money on a newer car. So maybe we should be looking at the vehicle rather than blaming the driver yet again. And intersection collisions, they're by far and away the most common crash for all drivers, not just novice drivers. But how do we learn to avoid them? Maybe it's experience. Maybe we have to have one first and then we don't have another. So will there be any long-term benefit from this new scheme that Baroness Veer has announced? Well, it's unlikely. The provisions within the scheme that you've just seen are already covered under the Pass Plus. All that this would do is move it internally into part of the driving test training. The logbook idea has been floating around for ages. Some driving instructors already use logbooks to record what their trainees are doing. So if you want my cynical view, my guess is that this basically means a bit more syllabus will be tacked on to what the driving instructor is supposed to deliver. That logbook will probably become compulsory, and then it will be over to the trainers. And then when nothing happens and we don't see any improvement in driver standards, it'll be inadequate driver training standards yet again. Okay, so what can we do to help ourselves? Well, we can actually learn to think about what we're doing. And so this is a better biking quickie to follow up from a post I put up on Facebook yesterday in my Skills on Saturday series. It was about why we should always consider keeping the rear brake light illuminated after we've come to a stop and what specific circumstances that could benefit us. If you want to find out more about that, have a look for the post with the title Getting Rear-Ended Makes for a Bad Day. I went up yesterday, so it should be fairly easy to find. One of my former trainees, Janet Clark, responded with this. Thank you, Kevin, she said. Personally, I always come to a stop with right foot on brake and in first gear with the clutch in, so I'm ready for the off, especially if I see someone coming up fast behind me. Is there a danger doing it like this that I haven't considered? And my response was only a knackered clutch hand. And then I went on, or a bit more seriously, and whether it takes you a while to get back into first gear if you've chosen neutral. And I recounted a little story from a few days ago. I was sitting watching some new riders out with their instructor, and I watched the learner conscientiously put the bike into neutral and then sit at the safety position, which is basically left foot down, right foot up on the brake. You may recall from your basic training. And then as soon as the light turned green, because you're not supposed to move away before the green, the trainee shifted back into first, then checked over both shoulders, and then finally engaged the clutch and rode off. It took so long for this whole rigmarole to be to gone through that, in fact, only the instructor got off behind the trainee, and the second trainee had to stop because the lights had cycled back to red. So, yeah, we need to be ready to move for a number of reasons. It may be simply to get off with a green light again, or it may be, in one story I mentioned, I had to actually ride forward through a red light, fortunately in the days before red light cameras, to avoid a jackknifing lorry. The driver had just come over a blind crest into some blinding sun, obviously didn't see the red light, hit the brakes hard on an unloaded trailer back in the days before anti-lock brakes, and was sliding sideways towards me. So I got out of there pretty damn quick, and being in first gear helped enormously there. And somebody else mentioned much the same. Dave Pearson also said it saved him when a car approaching a roundabout, apparently too fast to stop. He was able to move forward, and although he was still bumped from behind, he stayed upright. But here's a comment from somebody else, Amanda, who said, my instructor teaches to stay in first gear at lights, etc., so you're ready to quickly move off. Okay, now I just explained why there are some times that it's, we certainly don't want to take too long to get moving, but whilst there are reasons not to shift to neutral, it doesn't mean we should always sit in first gear either, because what we have to do is decide what will happen at those lights. Now, if you think that the lights are going to change in the next few seconds, then staying in gear makes a lot of sense. But something I learned years ago when I was a courier was if I was on one of the roads crossing the A4 in West London, and the traffic light was red in front of me, I would sit there holding the clutch in for 5 minutes before I got a green light cycling through. So think about where you stopped. If you're at pedestrian lights, how long are they going to stay red? Not very long. Probably, I don't know, what is it, 20 seconds or something for a typical crossing, maybe a little bit longer if it's one of the pedestrian sensors fitted ones, the Pelican puffin crossings. They'll stay red a little bit longer generally, but normally they'll be green again within a few seconds, so there's not much point in shifting to neutral there. What about on a main road? Well, if it's a red with a minor road, again, it's probably going to change in just a minute or two. If you're at a roundabout junction with lights on, intervals around the roundabout, well, again, they're going to change in pretty short order. So in both cases, what you have to do is decide whether it's worth shifting for neutral for that short period. If the light turned red just as you rolled up to it, then you've got the full sequence of red to wait for. So maybe it makes sense to get into neutral. But if the light was red as you already stopped, the chances are it will change fairly quickly, and it's probably not worth shifting to neutral. But what about level crossing? Nothing's going anywhere until the train goes past. So you might as well get into neutral and wait, because you know that you're going to get plenty of warning when that train comes. You'll first of all see the train, and then you have to wait for the lights to go out and the barrier to start going up. There's no point in actually shifting to neutral when you see the train, because there might be another one following it or going the other way. So there's no right or wrong in whether you shift to neutral or whether you stay in gear. It's just the usual common sense it depends decision that you have to make. So just look at the situation and make sure what makes most sense for you. All right. Okay. So that's it for today's show. Don't forget, if you want to find out more about better biking skills, you can head over to my Lulu page and find some paper books to read. And if you've enjoyed the show, you can come over to my coffee page. You'll find lots and lots of content there. I've just put 4 new ones up yesterday in my supporter section, one of which is free to read. £3 will buy you a month's access, or you can subscribe and gain access to even more content. So once again, thank you very much indeed for watching Elevenses. I hope you've enjoyed the show. I hope we've got some sort of educational information out there to you. Hopefully see you again on Wednesday. So from Kevin Williams here, thanks for watching, and bye for now.